Area of a triangle. The area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height, and hopefully that looks a little bit familiar. Remember, a parallelogram was base times height, and a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. Well, that's because a triangle is half a parallelogram. That's where this formula comes from. If you think about a parallelogram, ready? If I draw, that's a terrible looking parallelogram. I could do better than that, right? Apparently I can't. Area of a triangle. The area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. And hopefully that sounds familiar. It's half of the equation for finding the area of a parallelogram. A parallelogram was base times height. And when you think about it, that should make sense because a parallelogram, if I were to draw a parallelogram right here. So here's my parallelogram. Watch what happens when I draw a diagonal of a parallelogram. Okay? If I draw the diagonal of a parallelogram, well, that gives me 2 triangles. Let me get rid of one of those triangles. Oh, look at that. Now I have one triangle. The area of that triangle is half of the parallelogram. I just erased half of the parallelogram, so the area of the triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. It's really half of a parallelogram. Okay? And once again, when we measure the height has to be measured directly from the base to the top of this thing, all right, from one side to the other. And, the difference here is instead of measuring from one side to the other side, I'm measuring from one side to the opposite angle, okay? And so the height will always be that measurement that's going from one side to the opposite angle. And so when we look at something like this guy, once again, the height this time, again, typically the height's easiest to identify because it's associated with that right angle. That's going to be this guy. So if I'm using that at the height, I just have to ask myself, well, which side and which point are they measuring to? And so this 10 right here is measuring the distance from this side down here to the opposite angle up here, okay? And again, the reason it's outside the triangle is because that's the only place that I could measure the distance between those two things and have it be measured at a right angle, okay? And so, you might want to rotate this one. That might make it easier to visualize. But the point here is that the base this time has to be the 4.2 because when I look at that height, I'm measuring from that particular side, the 4.2 side, to the opposite angle. So that has to be my base and my height combination. Okay, so the area this time is 1/2 the base times the height, which is 10. And again, this is a job for my calculator. So I plug it in and I get a 21. And once again, that's meters squared. Okay. If I look at the next one, once again, we're looking at this thing and we want the base and the height. Notice there's only 2 measurements given, so let's hope that they're the base and the height. So when we look at this guy, this is obviously the height. And notice it's measuring the distance from this side up to the opposite angle. And so this side has to be my base because that's the side I'm measuring from. Okay? And so this one, I've got the base and the height, but they're written kind of a weird way. Notice they're written as feet and inches. That's going to be really hard to multiply, okay? I can't multiply when one's in feet and one is in inches. So we want to convert this to 1 unit of measurement. And it's always easier to go to the smaller one. So once again, if you look at feet, you say, hey, 12 feet? Well, I multiply by 12 and say that's 144 inches. So if I have 144 inches plus another 2 inches, now I can say, hey, this whole measurement right here is 146 inches, okay? Likewise, down here, I'm going to change this feet to inches, so I take this guy and multiply it by 12. That gives me 156 inches. So now I have 156 inches with another 4 inches right next to it. Well, that's a total of 160 inches. Okay, so that's the new measurement. So when I look at the base and the height, oh yeah, here we go. Area equals 1/2 the base times the height. Well, the base this time I'm going to do 160. The height I'm going to do 146. And now, once again, this is a job for my calculator. I do the 1/2 times the 160 times the 146. And it looks like I get 11,680, and that's going to be square inches. Okay. So again, if I have more than one measurement, I got to kind of convert things a little bit to make it easier for myself. Okay. 1/2 the base times the height.